Welcome to the Fleet Geeks podcast. We're here to help develop fleet and transport professionals. Do you want to progress and develop your skills and knowledge? We promise to bring lively conversation and debate around interesting issues and keep you bang up to date with changes in our awesome industry. The Fleet Geeks are a community of professionals, and if you enjoyed the podcast, why not join the discussion for free in the Fleet Geek community over on Facebook?
Right, so the red light's rolling, Mr. Vickers. It's a pleasure to be back on screen with you, mate.
Back on screen, back in the public realm. Yes, absolutely. How are you today?
A bit of a contentious one today. Yeah, no, I'm good today, mate. I'm looking forward to a bit of a contentious episode potentially.
Yeah. This one's a little bit. I've had a little bit of a bee in me, but I mean, I like bees because they make honey. I don't like wasps, but bees. But I've had a bit of a bee in my bonnet about this one since I saw it, and I don't know why I get so worked up about it, but essentially, it's an email that came round as part. If you've signed up, anybody's signed up to the DVSA changes in legislation. If you go, they do a blog as well, don't they? But all sorts of things you can sign up to with the government. I've got to be honest, it's very good. The .gov website is brilliant for that sort of stuff. But people, operators and drivers alike who have signed up to this received an email just before the weekend, and then the DVSA launched several posts on social media, and it's all in relation to some remote equipment that originally, in fact, only as little as 2021, I believe it was, the DVSA were adamant that they weren't going to have this equipment. It came about as a part of the 2019, if everybody remembers, the smart tachos. When smart tachos became a thing, it was widely publicised at the time that these smart tachos would allow enforcement agents to detect issues with tachographs remotely. And of course, at the time, everybody went, "Oh, this is a step too far. I drive under a bridge and there's a DVSA officer with a gun and pointing at me and he's going to download me tachograph, and then 3 weeks later I'm going to get a load of fines in the post." So people went mad. The DVSA said, "Well, look, don't worry, because we're not going to buy it anyway, because it's not part of our plans." And now, all of a sudden, at the weekend, they've announced that they are trialling said equipment.
Yes. So shall I read the email? I've got the email. Let's go with it. So I got into my inbox on the 2nd of August an email from the DVSA, public.govdelivery.com. Mike, like you said, these are really worth people signing up to. Absolutely. and getting them. I suggest signing up to the HSE one, the Office of the Traffic Commissioner, and the DVSA one. So, detecting tachograph violations is getting easier, is the headline. We are trialling remote tachograph sensing equipment across Britain to make it easier to detect drivers and operators who are breaking driver's hours rules. While we know most operators follow driver's hours rules, we are still finding offences at the roadside. Breaking driver's hours rules has the potential to be dangerous to road users. We are exploring this technology to help keep Britain's roads safe. It will mean we can identify many kinds of tachograph violations when travelling alongside vehicles or from the roadside. Our examiners will be able to determine whether a smart card is inserted, whether it is correctly calibrated, whether a tachograph has been tampered with. We are committed to exploring every available opportunity to help us prevent dangerous, tired drivers putting themselves and other road users at risk. If you're a HGV, PSV, or LGV operator who has to follow driver's hours rules, make sure you understand your responsibilities as an operator, know how to adequately schedule drivers' activities, regularly check your driver's compliance, listen and respond to any driver's hours concerns raised by your drivers. If you commit a tachograph violation, it's now easier for us to find you! !
Yeah. Now, I get all that, and absolutely. I'm the biggest fan of the DVSA. Anybody who's been on one of my courses will know that I will defend them to the hilt and what they do, because I think they do a fantastic job. I think the whole department. Oh, I'm really getting brownie points now. I think the whole department works together. But it has to be said, though, Pete, they are much maligned in the industry, particularly, operators are just as bad, but drivers There are whole pages on Facebook dedicated to sort of having a crack, having a pop at the DVSA, which I find kind of amazing, really, because they're trying to keep them safe. But where I took exception to this was the way that email read to start with, because people won't get down to the nitty gritty; they'll just read the headlines. I think they call it in the modern world clickbait. And I believe that a lot of operators and drivers will have read that as, right, that's it, the DVSA can download tachographs remotely now, and we're going to get into big trouble because they. And that, I think, was evidenced by, if you look on the drivers' forums on various social media sites, that kind of was the flavour. There was a lot of really anti-DVSA. So I think they've shot themselves in the foot here. I really do, because no one would have read past those headlines. The reality of it is this is not new. And some of the journalists in our industry take a little bit of blame for this, because it's like, you know, in order to get those clicks, there's new rules from the DVSA, and it's nothing new under the sun. It came out in 2019. And, you know, reading past the headlines, they are not going to be able to download your tachograph at the roadside, or even if they pull up alongside you. I even read one post from a driver who said, he said, DVSA, they call them VOSA still, of course, and they tend to refer to them as WASPs. I think that's down to the Battenberg coloured cars that they drive. And he said, as one passed me the other day, I noticed on my tacho head that it started spinning round as if it was downloading data, which of course is not true. It didn't. It wouldn't have done that, but because they can't do that. It's not in the legislation for them to do that. They can. At that point, at that roadside, it's called the short range communications. Let me give it the right DSRC, dedicated short range communications, and it enables them to take a snapshot of the tachograph head at that time. It does not allow them to download the tachograph data and start looking for things like infringements from 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago.
Hi, it's Pete from Flagship Partners. We're really proud to sponsor the Fleet Geeks podcast. Flagship Partners offer a range of consultancy and training services to ensure that our customers remain compliant and have the best possible knowledge to be able to fulfill their work. If you're interested in support with any of our safety, HR or compliance services, or you want to train to be a transport manager or need driver CPC training, give us a call today.
It's called RTM Data, and I'm having to read this here because I need to just get this right. So RTM Data allows them to take 19 measurements from the tachograph, which sounds like quite a lot, but when you look at those 19 bits of data that it can take, it can look at the registration number, whether the vehicle's been driven without a card, whether the card has been inserted whilst ejected whilst driving, and various sort of power supply interruptions, sensor faults, date of last calibration, if there's been a security breach. So it really just is a snapshot of if somebody's got a magnet, or I don't know if that's what they use these days, I'm old school, or whatever, on some sort of cheat device, then they should be able to detect that, which is great. Absolutely should they be able to detect that. But please, folks, it can't download your tachograph. It can't. You're not going to get a letter through the post saying that 3 weeks ago you forgot to have your working time break, and blah blah blah. So that's just my. I just think they've shot themselves a little bit in the foot there.
Yeah. So I think I sort of having a read through. I think it's very it's a clickbait on the headline, and I think. And I want to be very, very careful in the words I choose here, because we're proud to be working towards earned recognition standard for the DVSA, and we're proud to work alongside them. And I want to be very careful how I word this, but I think when we choose language and the way we choose to express things, I think one of the things that I would suggest is that, from a DVSA point of view, there's already a lot of fear, isn't there? There's already a lot of fear of the DVSA, and they already hold an inordinate amount of power as one of the authorities that are in charge of this regulated industry, and quite rightly so. And I think they do a very, very valuable job in trying to keep the crims off the road, so that only legitimate operators are there. So, but I think this conversation is valuable nonetheless, and I think they'll respect that we're having the conversation, and that is, with the email sort of bullet points, that there's tachograph sensing equipment being trialed. I think there could have been a level of potential reassurance around exactly what that will and won't do, rather than what it will do. Because by saying what it, my suggestion with that is, by saying what it does do and not what it doesn't do, is it leaves what it doesn't do open to interpretation, doesn't it? And I think that's sort of where
they've been clumsy with their words, or they've deliberately kind of made it outline. And I would like to err on the side of they've just been a little clumsy with their words. But right.
absolutely. And I think I think it's great. The equipment's going to be able to check that a smart card's inserted. We know that that's legally the requirement. Whether it is correctly calibrated, I think again it's just an indication. What's correctly calibrated? Do you mean the tachograph or the card? Because you've gone from talking to the card to about the tachograph. So I feel like that that could be worded a little bit more clearly, i.e. that the tachograph's within calibration, which is obviously what's intended, and whether a tachograph has been tampered with. So I think that's sort of pretty straightforward, and then straight on to going about commitment. So I think it would be worthwhile pointing out that this is not what we're going to do, and likewise, the DVSA are within their powers to be able to pull people over and do what they require on the roadside anyway. So it's but it is absolutely, you are absolutely right, and I think it was interesting to see from a social media point of view the implications that had. And sometimes I do one of the things that I would suggest is that there's many people, particularly in the Transport Manager forums, that literally just took that, copied it, and posted it as if it was their own information.
Yes.
Now, that I find that a little bit concerning as well, in that actually, because I picked up, for example, you got drawn into comment on it without having realised that it was actually an email, and people said, well, if you checked your emails or you're signed up to emails, well, actually, sometimes emails don't come through. They can get put into junk and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I got that email about lunchtime that day. So yeah.
And so it's, but I think one of the things as transport managers or people who are posting on social media, it's all well and good us challenging the way that's gone out, and I'm always open to be challenged in the way that we communicate, and we try and put foresight into it. So sometimes I feel a little bit worried those in glass houses shouldn't throw stones and all that sort of thing, but also there's transport managers out there. You shouldn't be lifting stuff from the DVSA or the OTC and posting it as if you've written that content. That's I think we need to be very responsible in the way that we go. Received this email from the DVSA today, paste, for example. I think we need to put a little bit more thought into that. What say you to that, Mike?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we on another podcast, which is why you need to really hear them all. We discussed another recent development, which was the C1 category. I won't go into it because we cover that off. But again, that was subject to a lot of shall we say, interpretation that was kind of passed off as being, even by journalists from newspapers, the nationals as well were posting this on social media, and they just hadn't read the story or researched the story properly. And that's exactly how this particular issue's come over to me. It is to be applauded. It is to be. I was always in the impression that DVSA weren't going to have this equipment because basically they were skint, and this was a very expensive piece of equipment, but. I also dug out some information where it's they've tendered the government tender that led to this, and they haven't actually invested that great deal of money in it, to be fair. And if it works, brilliant, because it's a great piece of allows them to target in force, so they're not sort of stopping everybody. They're only stopping the ones that are the real ones that are out there.
And that's absolutely it as well, because it's actually technical development that I totally agree with, because anything that saves the DVSA time and enforcement and making sure they are catching the genuine crims is, that's definitely a force for good, isn't it? It's definitely
it is. And I suppose that just the in terms of the DVSA, just speak to the industry, and it's not just about the, no disrespect, it's not just about the trade associations as well. Speak to the wider industry. We're on your side. Most of us are on your side. Speak to us if you're going to change something, you're going to bring something in. Talk to us first, and we'll tell you how the mood music is, should we say? And we'll probably give you a more honest opinion than they will. It's an interesting one. Say it does, without coming across as being critical to the DVSA, who I think do an amazing job. I think that one, somebody needs in the communications department to have a little bit of a look how they sort of push that out, because there is, as I pointed out on social media over the weekend, this industry, if you want to cracking examples of Chinese whispers, then this industry is it. We call it, as we've probably discussed on the website, on the podcast before, we call it MMR in the training business. My mate reckons. If you, and I think that's what we've got to avoid. We've got to avoid this my mate reckons stuff. But I can guarantee you, though, Pete. Unfortunately, I can guarantee you that over this weekend, driver CPCs up and down the country, the instructor, we're there, we do it. The instructor will have been up in front of a classroom full of people and saying, "Here, guess what? I read at the weekend that they're going to start introducing," and that's the way these Chinese whispers, spiraling out of control. It is a classic one, and it's my old subject for another day. But it's my whole. Well, of course, the DVSA are privatised now, so they're going to stop around Christmas when they need to get the Christmas party funds up. And it's a classic. My mate reckons, and it's wrong. So let's see where this one goes.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Mike. And thank you for listening, people. I hope you've enjoyed it, and please do share it with your friends and colleagues. And if you'd like to comment, please do join the debate. We'd be very interested to hear your opinion.
Absolutely.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much for joining us. Take care now. Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please share with your friends and colleagues too. Join us for free on Facebook with the Fleet Geeks community for transport and fleet managers. Fleet Geeks offers ongoing professional development, networking and mentoring too. So get in touch with me, Pete Rushmer, on any social media platform to find out more.